Hey everyone, it's Natalia, and today I am bringing you a video where I attempted to make some Sehun nails for my friend because I and my friend love EXO. Now, the group EXO just had a group comeback, but not with the entire group. Now, anyone who's familiar with them, looking through these photo cards, will see that my biases we're not part of this comeback due to shenanigans. I'm a big CBX stan. I collect their photo cards and stuff. But my friend does love Sehun, so I wanted to make a set about him. So, this set took a little bit of a sideways turn, which you will see, but I'm going to show you what my initial plan was, which is very different than how they turned out. So here was my initial plan. I'm doing like an Obsession theme set of nails, because, arguably one of their best comebacks. So my plan was I had already illustrated, Sehun that I wanted to put on, that I wanted to put like Kai's iconic crop top motif, right? Like the little EXO, the reverse EXO, and then put like the moon like he has here. And this was my initial plan in like red, yellow, and black. I wanted to put some rhinestones, these little like movement lines I thought might be interesting. And I had pre-made a Sehun decal from a drawing I did. So let's do the basic nail prep here. Which is filing the edges. I'm using medium stilettos for this. So you're filing the tip to make sure there's no little nubbies hanging on. So I show you this initial plan so that you'll see that I did have like a cohesive thought going into this. It went sideways, and I ended up just going back on my usual nonsense. Once you get the little greeblies pointing filed off, we're going to take a buffer, and you just want to buff the nails. These are soft gel tips until no more shine is showing on the nails. And that's what we're doing here. So once you got them all that, you're going to take some isopropyl alcohol, and you're just going to wipe off the dust, and your nails are ready to start painting. So we're doing the base coat first. So I had this idea of putting some Born Pretty magnetic white underneath a jelly coat. Then there's going to be one black nail and then the one yellow nail, which I'm using my nail and Yali palette for. I'm not sure this was really necessary, but first we're painting this yellow nail. Pre-warning for a little bit coming up later, don't get too attached to this yellow nail. Let's just say it's part of what goes sideways soon on this set. But that's the thing about doing any sort of art piece. It's always a process. Next, the ring finger is getting a just full coat of black because I initially had planned for that to be the nail I was putting the decal on. So next I'm doing this magnetic white base. So yeah, I had this plan where I was going to do it over like a dark jelly red and you would sort of see the magnetic peeking through. I'm not sure when I finished you can actually tell any of it is magnetic, but it is what it is. So I'm just moving the magnetic pieces with my magnet and then flash curing them into place, because if you don't flash cure while you're doing a full set before putting it into the full lamp, they will migrate. So once you get them into a place you like, flash cure it right then. So I'm doing the 3 nails with this, but as I said, this seemed to be a pointless effort, wasting my time pretty much. I was using the Born Pretty magnetic white for this. Anything I use will be linked in the description box. So we're doing a second coat. This is the second coat of the Born Pretty Pure Black on the black nail. We're doing the jelly red. I'm using the Mayo MHO2. It's from the Hong Yan collection that I got on Sweetie Nail Supply. I love this collection so much, and this red is so beautiful. And I think that if I had just put one layer of red, you would still see the magnetic through, but I decided I wanted it to be darker. So you're going to fully cure, and then I'm going in with a second coat of the red on the red nails. Which, it does look beautiful, but I think it really sort of, you cannot tell I put magnetic under there anymore. I think one layer would have probably been the best play if you wanted the magnetic to be obvious. So I'm just putting that layer on, and then you're going to fully cure after you have this. If you want to make these exactly. Next, I wanted to add a little bit of black ombre, so I'm using my Nail & Yali ombre palette, but since I find that the Mayo Korea, like, it really has a strong inhibition layer, so I'm just going through with some alcohol, and I'm wiping off all the sticky layer, the inhibition layers on the nails, just so doing stuff onto them afterwards is a lot easier. They will become sort of mattified as you remove it with some alcohol. Next, I'm going to be adding an ombre to the red nails using the Nail & Yali palette. Any sort of, like, patting gel palette. I hear there's some really good ones. I really want to try the Chrysania Neri one, but it's been sold out all the time, and, you know, I don't have endless amounts of money, but this one works very well as sort of a mid-range budget one. And I'll link a video where I tested it out. So I'm doing, like, a ombre on either ends of the thumb, because I wanted to sort of frame in where I'm going to be doing the lettering later. Sort of like making a, what's that called, like a vignette sort of vibe. I'm just patting it in with a makeup sponge. Nothing fancy. So next for the middle nail, initially my plan was different than what I ended up. So I was doing sort of an ombre down from the tip inwards. Sort of feathering it out with a cleaner side of the sponge. Good. And then finally on the pinky, I wanted to do sort of reverse of the first one and do like a black aura in the middle. Because I was going to put a bright moon over it. So I thought like, oh, we're going to, you know, make it a darker background for that. You'll see that sort of takes a bit of a turn coming soon. So I started in on this yellow nail. So I start on it doing pretty much exactly what I plan to do. I'm just sort of speeding through what I do on the yellow nail here because this yellow nail is not part of the final set, but I just wanted to show you that this is a thing that does happen very often with me anyway, where I go in with like a plan, and then the longer I go on the plan, I realize I've created just the ugliest piece of nail art you've ever seen. So here I am just confidently putting in like the X shape. I'm filling it in. I'm like, yeah, I think this is going to work. I'm like thickening up the line. So it's more of like how I envisioned it. Like, yeah, okay. We're going to be doing like his crop top. Perfect. I feel like in another set this might have worked, but this one I realized, yeah, this is it ends up not great. Putting in this X. Look at me. I'm still very confident at this point. I'm like, yeah, this is definitely going to work. I like what's going on here. Things going great. Oh, look, I'm going to adding more black to my black and mixing gel mixture to make it more pigmented. This is going to be great. Look, I'm adding in those little white speed lines. I still am thinking this is going to work at this point. But a little thing in the back of my head at this point was going, Natalia, I'm not really sure this is it. Now I'm adding in these rhinestones. And I love these red rhinestones. I use them a lot. And I'm still like, yeah, I think this is gonna be great. But it was not great. It was sort of at this point as I'm about to cure these rhinestones on that my head started actually communicating with me and going, I don't know, man. This might not be it. And the next nail that I do really solidified that it was indeed not it. But I still went through with my, initial plan briefly on the next nail before deciding to wildly change everything I was doing. So I'm going in on the thumb, and I'm going to be doing some lettering. So I grabbed the white from the nail and yali. I use the nail and yali for pretty much everything, and I'm going to be doing the EXO. So I left in this entire, how long it took me to do the X, so that you know how long I take on things. And maybe if you are someone who also takes a really long time, you won't feel as bad about it. Because I always find that there's sort of strength in numbers in the sense of feeling better about things that might worry you, especially when you're like me, not really an expert at a craft that you're doing, but just someone who really loves doing something. And I really love making nails, even though I'm not an expert at it. I hope to, improve every time I make a set of nails. And so I've been really working on doing really crisp lettering recently. And so this is my attempts at that. So I'm going in with this white and I'm doing the X here. And it's okay to wipe everything off and start again. I, do it all the time. But I'm actually pretty pleased with how my final EXO came out on this nail. I think in terms of lettering, the thing that has helped me is to find whatever letter is in the middle of your word. Because then you don't do that thing that, when you were a kid and you were writing something on writing a happy birthday card for someone, and you write happy and it looks great. And then on the next line you start birthday and you get birth out really good and then realize you still have to fit day in there and there's just not enough space. So the letters get smaller and more squished. I do find if you put the letter in the middle where you want it to be, you can really easily figure out the placement of the other letters and it'll all work. I'm flash carrying once I'm happy with how a letter looks because I know myself and I would very quickly, smudge it by accident. Here I'm putting the little accent on the E, which was the most difficult part was getting that little diamond shape in there. So next we're going to be doing the O. So it's just sort of an O with a slash through it. I find O's and letters with curves for myself personally to be extremely difficult. So my only advice is to just take it slowly and don't be afraid to wipe it off and start from scratch. But I am actually pretty pleased with how this turned out. I think it looks pretty good. So then I sent that in for a full cure once I was happy with the letters. And here's the point where I start to realize, wait a second. I'm putting these rhinestones on, and then I'm looking at this nail, I'm looking at the yellow nail, and I'm going, oh no, this is ugly. We can't do this. I gotta change this immediately. So I'm wiping everything off, and I'm like, okay, it's time to come up with a new plan. So here is my plan now. So I'm taking some Cocoaist Accessory Bond Black. So I put a matte top coat over everything. And I am going over all of my letters with the Cocoaist Accessory Bond in black because I've decided I'm going to add chrome over it. I feel like if a set isn't going great, adding some chrome accents really does often help out quite a bit. So I'm going in, it's actually a lot quicker once it's already down to just paint over the white. But if you want to be more efficient with this, I would say just start with the Cocoaist Accessory Bond instead of just do the lettering with that from the get-go. But at when I was starting the lettering, I didn't know I was going to be doing chrome on it. But I think the set came out better for it. So I'm covering every single thing with the Cocoaist Accessory Bond. You can use sort of any non-wipe gel that's good for chrome for this, but I find the accessory bond really worked for the vibe I was going for. It does have a bit of a textured vibe to it, so if you want it to be fully smooth, this probably isn't the product to go for, but I like a little texture. So just cover up your lettering as best you can, or if you're smart and you want to do a nail similar to this, just start with the non-wipe product to begin with, and send it in for a full cure. The Cocoa accessory bond, you do a full cure, and some of them you only need 30 seconds, but this one, the 60-second works great. And now I'm going in with some red and some gold. I'm putting gold near the center and red near the outside, and I'm just going to sort of smoosh them together so it forms like a chrome ombre. And it turned out pretty good. My isolation didn't isolation quite as much as I'd want it to, but you know what? These things happen. When that happens, just take a Q-tip, dip it in some alcohol, and very carefully go in and use that Q-tip to wipe away any of the areas that you didn't want chrome on that ended up with a little bit of chrome. So I'm burnishing it in with a clean sponge, and as you can see, there's a few little spots. So I'm going to go in and then just clear it up a bit if there were some that, you know, add a little bit of excess chrome where I did not want it. I think with the chrome on it, it's actually a little bit more thematically appropriate too. So now we're engaging in my how I'm going to fix this set. I'm taking the same mold that I used for my Halloween set, and I'm using some dark red mold carving gel, 3D gel. I've linked it in the description, in dark red, which did match the nails color very well. And I'm making some roses to fix this situation. So I'm fully curing those. And now using some rhinestone glue, I use the Ivy Fix gel. I am adding some 3D elements, some 3D roses to the nail that I think really does add a bit of a vibe. Mind you, this did make the nail set come out very similar to my Halloween nails, which I really was not meaning to do. So fully cure that too, and we're gonna redo this nail. Now, the smart thing to me would be to just chuck this and, you know, get the same nail size, but I don't like wasting materials. So I'm using just I'm buffing off as much of it to make it smooth again, and then I'm just going to cover this with black. So we're just doing a pure black base. The yellow nail is going away, and we're doing something different with it. So I'm using the pure black, the Born Pretty pure black again, and we're just going to cover it entirely. Like the yellow nail never happened. So I'm going to fully cure that, and then I'm putting a chrome coat of Jinbei Crazy Top Standard. Now, I actually don't really recommend Jinbei Crazy Top Standard if you want to do like a fully chromed nail. I find it doesn't really like take to chrome super well, but I'm fully curing this. And the reason I'm using it is because since it kind of turns out patchy, that's sort of what I wanted for it, for this redo. So I'm putting on the red and the gold mirror patterns. Now these ones, I have no idea where I got them. I've had them for years. But I think probably like Amazon or something. So I'm putting this on, and I'm just going to rub it in. And I'm totally happy with it turning out a little bit patchy. So you'll see what I mean about how, you know, it sort of doesn't really adhere super great to the Jinbei Crazy Top. So I'm grabbing a clean sponge here. I'm just wiping it off. And see, as you can see, like, it doesn't really take perfectly, but that's totally fine because that's kind of what I wanted for it. Because we're just going to put, like, I want it to be sort of a grungy look to it. And we're going to be putting some of the 3D roses and things over it. Now, I had those 3D roses that I made with the carving gel. And that's great. Wiping off the chrome here, because I tend to be a little messy, just wiping everything off. And with all chrome, you always want to take a file and file around the free edge so that the gel, because gel does not like adhering to chrome. So you want to make sure there's a little edge filed off so that when you put top layer on, it won't peel. So I'm making some more little 3D roses that I want to put on top of this and setting them in for a cure. But I'm also mixing some of the gold powder into some crazy top. Just any top gel will work, any base gel or whatever. And I'm using this teeny little star mold because I wanted to add just a couple gold stars. I made way too much, so I made a bunch of gold stars. I only ended up using like 2 in this. But I'm just slopping it on messily, and I'm going to do this is how I do like these tiny little flat molds. Sort of like you would use with a nail stamp, where I'm going to take like a nail stamp scraper, and then I'm going to scrape down and then up again. So it sort of like evens it out. So you just gently scrape, and then it'll sometimes take too much out, so you can just go back over it. And you want to go in multiple directions to make sure that it has, all of the gel where you want it to be. So here I'm scraping it up. And that is how I make little 3D tiny little moldlets. So I'm going to fully cure that. And now we're going to use the rhinestone glue to make like a little rose cluster on this nail. See, I wasn't intending to have any 3D elements on this nail, but on any of these nails. But as my initial plan began to turn out really ugly, I did a pivot. I pivoted. And you can always do that with any artistic thing that you're making, so long as it's not for a client. Like, since I'm just making things for my friends and they do not pay me, I make whatever I think they might like. And you know what? They tend to like it. So I'm putting in these little roselets, making a nice little cluster, and then I'm going to add 2 of the little gold stars here. I'm just going to do one up here. And then one at like the bottom, a smaller one at the bottom of the roselet. And I think it does look quite nice. I think the stars are really thematic because if you are familiar with the lore of EXO, they all have superpowers and they're from space. They're from an exoplanet. Sometimes K-pop groups have wacky concepts. So I'm now going to this was initially supposed to go on the ring finger on the black one, but I've decided to move the decal to the middle finger. So here I am dunking it in water. This is an illustration of Sehun that I myself did because I do illustrations. And now I am sticking this on. Sometimes they give you a little bit of problem. You just got to be patient and really just mush it into place. I realized there was a bit of I had cut it, so there's a bit more white on it from the background than I wanted. And you can actually just gently go in with an X-Acto and remove those while it's stuck on the nail before you seal it in. I do it all the time. It doesn't generally, if you don't press too hard, you won't scratch up the nail or anything. So taking a file, and I'm going to file off the excess, which is a little tricky on stiletto nails. It doesn't really want to be removed. And then I'm going to seal it in with a matte top coat because I'm going to ombre and chrome over it. So I'm just using my matte top coat here to seal it in. Make sure you're going around all of the edges. I did a video that I have where I have done like the decals, all of the decals that I will link. Now I'm going to make some more little molds. I'm making this little mold that I have, which is linked in the description. Has like a couple little butterflies. So I'm adding in those because I thought that would look nice. A little red butterfly. So making that. Pull it in for a full cure after you've got it full and looking the way that you like. And now I'm going to add a little bit of ombre. So I'm going over the bottom. So my original illustration, which wasn't made for this nail, I just had this drawn. He had like a giant purple flower and that didn't really fit with the set. So I'm using the ombre to like cover that and sort of make it more cohesive with the set. And then I'm adding just a little bit at the top because I want to do some more of that, sort of semi-patchy chrome situation, and make the ombre looks nice. I'm a big fan of a dark ombre. So stick that in to cure. And now we're just going to add just a little bit of the gold and the red chrome powders again. Just to tie everything in. And as always, I'm making a total mess while doing it. That's why I have a silicone mat on my desk. So once we've got that all looking good, which I think it looks quite nice, brushing it off, we are going to add the 3D little butterfly. So I'm using just the IV Fix gel. This is a little tricky to pick up. Stick that in. And then we're just going to stick it down on the nail. I'm sort of replacing where the flower was, but on the opposite side. So smooshing that little butterfly into place and then stick it into cure. Okay. Next, we're going to do the pinky. Going in a little bit of a wild order here. So I decided to stick with the moon shape that was in my initial design, but I'm just going to use the just going to do it with the chrome. So I'm starting with putting the matte base over to make it isolation chrome, and then using the Cocoist accessory bond in black. I really want to pick up the white accessory bond, but it was the last time I had Sweetie Nail Supply money. It was out of stock, so next time. And I'm going in and doing a crescent moon shape. I used to have a lot of trouble with crescent moons, but I feel it's one of those things where the more you practice it and the more you learn how like nail brushes move over the curve of nails and stuff, easier it becomes. So I'm doing a little crescent moon shape here. Filling her in. And then I'm going to do 2 tiny little T-shaped stars. Little cross stars. Looking nice. And if you're curious about the brush I'm using, this is a Diami fine liner. Really, really nice brush. I'm doing a little T-shaped star down here. Literally just like a tiny little cross. And then one up here. And then we're going to send that in for a full cure. Making sure that there's enough. And send her in. Once that's baked, I'm now going to put the gold and the red, adding a little bit of red accent. I really like how the red and the gold mix together. Red and gold is a big vibe for me. And then I'm just burnishing it in with a different sponge. And then I have this tiny, tiny little butterfly that I'm adding to tie it in. So there's not just one butterfly motif out of nowhere. Sticking that on. And then send that in to cure. And we are on to the last nail. So I'm doing the same sort of patchy red and gold situation. So I had put, like a chrome coat and then doing the same patchy red and gold where I did not want it to be, fully covered nicely. And my mold had this rather large, cluster. And so I am doing that, like a large rose cluster. And then I'm using a little, silicone sculpting tool to just sort of clean it out because there's a lot of tiny little lines. So this is a good way to make sure that you're getting the fine line and not too much. So we're popping that out after fully curing it. And we are just going to stick that right on the nail. So, immediately dropped it. So dunking it in the IV Fix gel. And sticking that bad boy on the nail. Making sure everything is pressed down. Smoothing out some of the gel globs. And then once you're happy with how it's placed, stick it in for a full cure. So my final thing that I'm doing is I wanted to sort of tie in the red a bit more. So I'm just adding a very light black ombre over all of the 3D pieces, like just tickling the edges of these 3D pieces. And then I'm going to stick that again under for a full cure. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of the red chrome powder to that ombre. Most ombre palettes you can use chrome on, especially if you don't need it to be perfectly smooth. So just stick a little bit of red. We're just like dusting it with the red chrome. And then we're just going to brush off any excess. And then we are ready to top coat, because this sort of very different than I envisioned set of nails is ready to be done. So I'm using the Crazy Top Standard, but now that I'm, the hindsight 2020 situation, I think I should have gone in with the Crazy Top Thin on top of these, the 3D, especially the 3D pieces themselves, because they do lose a bit of the definition, which I am noticing once I get onto this nail. So I do take my finger and sort of tap off some of it. So I would go with a thinner top coat if I were making this set again. And then put that in for a full cure. And those are the nails done. They are very different than I envisioned, but I still think that they catch the vibe of the Obsession comeback. And I did get to put my little Sehun illustration on there, so I suppose at the end of the day, they do make a very nice set of nails. Luckily, my friend has very similar sizes to me. You can see they're a little bit off, so I just quickly stuck them on so I could show you how they look. And yeah, thank you for hanging out with me. I'll be back next week. I have another K-pop theme, but a very different vibe that I think I won't mess up quite as badly as I did these ones. Everything is linked in the description, and I hope you have a fantastic week. I'll see you next time. Bye.